because I'm 67 and I've grown up with the EU institution in Brussels. And I always thought that the EU was the main remedy against a repeat of war especially between France and Germany. So I've always been pro-European, although I moved to the UK in 1985. And I knew no Brexiters in my family or my surroundings. I knew no Brexiters among colleagues, and I had never gone really to areas where the vote was heavily Brexit, like in the North or the Midlands, because I was a financial journalist. So for Le Monde, I traveled all over the world, but I hardly went to Liverpool, to Middlesbrough, to Sunderland. So since then, I came to realize that what I thought, that Britain had the best of all deals, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, never the 2 feet in. In fact, the 52% of the voters didn't want that. And they didn't want that by xenophobic reaction. And I tried to understand this hostility to free circulation, which I always thought was a great thing about the EU, that people could freely travel. And so I came to realize that my view had been completely wrong by the fact that I had this very strong pro-European bias. So when I realized that free circulation in the hardest hit parts of Britain by the politic of austerity, this free circulation people were hostile to it for two reasons. Why? It put enormous pressure on the wages down, but more than anything, at a time where there were scarce resources for public service, hospital, education, schools, and housing, very tight supply, were completely overwhelmed.
So then you started to travel around Britain.
I started to travel around Britain, and I discovered there was a reality there very different from the one in London. I live in Notting Hill, which is a very cosmopolitan area, quite well-off area. And I went to places where you didn't have that cosmopolitan outlook, that international outlook in the north, and where you had a lot of resentment against the loss of a thing which I never liked really, which was this British nationalism, this belief that Britain was different, that Britain was not completely European, never was, and that many people had family links with the Commonwealth, and they were resentful, particularly in ethnic minorities, about the free circulation of Europeans who were mostly white and Christian.
And then you started to understand them.
Then I started to understand their vote. I didn't understand their hostility because I didn't share it. But I did understand the fact that this revolt, this populist revolt, very heavily xenophobic, was really the effect of the financial crisis of 2008, which has been terrible in Britain because the taxpayer had to bail out banks more than anywhere and at lost funds. And the austerity was very strong. So I started to understand the feeling when you need scapegoat, those were the European. But I only started to understand then that free circulation, never crossed my mind before, was definitely a discriminatory system. That a system like the Canadian, where everyone is put on an equal face and where immigration depends on point system, which, by the way, in the UK is for non-EU, would be good to be generalized. So I became less hostile to the concept of end to free circulation.
So even though you yourself have been benefiting from the freedom of circulation?
I benefit in the past of the system. I'm British now because I decided after Brexit, and since I'm going to live the rest of my life in the UK, I better become British. So I'm now Belgian and British. I'm subject to two royalties. I'm very happy to become British because I'll be able to vote and guide the future of this country in a very difficult time post-Brexit. Although I believe that this country will do well outside of the European Union, medium and long term.
Yeah. The title of your book is Brexit is Going to Succeed. We are seeing that British politics is now in quite a mess, to put it mildly. Do you still think that Brexit is going to be a success, even now, after everything we've seen in Westminster?
Absolutely, I think the Brexit will succeed. Short term, I have no idea what will be the deal, and no one has any idea what will happen on 29th of March 2019 when the United Kingdom leaves officially the European Union. But afterwards, I think after a period of difficult adjustment and pressures and economic negative impact, the economy will find its way because it's a very flexible economy. And that medium to long term, but I cannot predict what will be in terms of years, the medium and the long term, but the economy will do well, the United Kingdom will do well, and will even be much more buoyant and dynamic in all its composition than the European Union, who cannot solve its problem.
You're writing in your book that Brexit has caused profound divisions in families, companies, and in the British society as a whole. Do you think that this social fracture is going to be worse, or will it, in the end, heal itself?
I think that British society has always been very divided in class, social, ethnic, regional, income, and everything. It's one of the most divided society in Europe. And the proof being that this acceptance of inequalities, which is always shocking for someone coming like me from quite a meritocratic society like the Belgian one, has made that this is always a class antagonism. It's a profoundly divided. And I can't see, whatever the outcome of Brexit, and I don't know what it will be, how this can be rearranged, because society is deeply divided like never before, and it will stay divided, because my theory in the book is that the Remainer, who have lost the referendum, whatever outcome will win post-Brexit, in post-Brexit Britain, because they are more adept to adapt to the knowledge economy of tomorrow.
But do you think that in the case of a new referendum, the outcome would be very different?
I don't think there will be a second referendum. For quite obvious reason, the two main parties have part of the electorate which voted against staying in the European Union. So no one except part of the establishment and former Prime Minister like Tony Blair or Jane Major and want a referendum. It's limited to the intellectual classes. If there is a second referendum, the result will be more or less the same. Could be Remain by 52%, Leave by 48%, but I don't think so. Why? First, the young people who are the most pro-Remain didn't vote during the referendum and will still not vote. In this country, the young don't vote. We have seen it in Scotland, where they put the age at 16, and the referendum at independence, the young didn't vote, and the staying in the UK won very easily. The second reason is I think the Leave vote will not vote for Remain, because Remain said, it'll be an economic catastrophe if you vote for Brexit. Well, 52% they vote for Brexit, and the economy is more or less doing quite well, and unemployment is still zero, and activity is still doing well, and consumers and real estate, the two important part of the growth are more or less doing well. So why would they vote for Remain then? And part of the Remainer, like me, and if there's a second referendum, I would vote, of course, Remain, but part of the Remainer say, well, let's give it a chance.
So a new referendum won't change much. Well, let's talk about another one. Enough of Brexit, and talk about a far more important election, football. You're Belgium and you're British. Which club would you cheer for during the World Cup, England or the Red Devils?
Of course, I did support the Red Devils. This being said, most of them play in England. But I did support the Red Devils, and I couldn't really feel empathy for England. It is... At the end of the day, I'm born Belgian. I was raised in Belgium. Belgium has been good to me. They paid my studies. They sent me to study in America. It's a good country. England is more my professional country. And that's why, at the end of the day, like many immigrants, I go for the country in football, which I feel emotionally the closest.
Yeah, I understand. And then the last one, fish and chips or frites belges with a croquette de crevette?
I'll have neither because they are both bad for your silhouette. But I think on the whole, I prefer Belgian food.
Yeah, no, that's not very difficult. Thank you very much, Marc Roche, author of the book Brexit Will Succeed. Well, that's it for this week, the week when there were only 100 days left till Brexit. Let me know what you think about this podcast, about Brexit, or about life in general, on Twitter or on Facebook at Channel Fog. You can also email me on fog@foginthechannel.eu. Please be so kind to share this podcast with your friends or your enemies or your neighbors or whomever, whether they are leavers or remainers. But if you happen to be a leaver, you can leave something else, a review on iTunes. I'm going back now from London to Paris, but there will be more Fog from the isolated continent next week in a new episode, and that will be the last week of the last full year that the United Kingdom has been a member of the European Union. I hope you'll join me then. Thank you for listening. Merry Brexmas and goodbye.
Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it.